So breast collars on troops during the American Revolution, breast collars on troopers in the War of 1812, breast collars all the way through the 1850s. So why did breast collars pretty much disappear proportionally during the American Civil War? So this week on the 11th OVC, the elusive breast collar during the American Civil War. So you see them all the time at modern Civil War reenactments, portrayals, and even some museum displays. The brass heart black leather breast collar on mounted troops. However, if you look at the ordnance manuals during the Civil War, for instance, the 1862 manual, it covers all the required gear, including the saddle, stirrups, skirts, saddlebags, girths, surcingle, crupper, but there's no mention of the breast collar. So why exactly is this? Well, the answer is because it wasn't part of the standard issue set of tack to cavalry troopers during the war. We actually addressed this issue when we covered Whitaker's complaints in his book, Lessons of a Decade, where he laments the removal of the breast collar versus the crupper. He goes so far to say that if the Army was to remove at least one piece of tack, it should have been the crupper or the crupper, not the breast collar. So if you missed that video, you can click it up here in the corner, watch that, and come back to this video. So when I was conducting research for this video, I quickly realized that the breast collars were still being used. However, they were generally not the black leather brass heart-shaped breast collar that so many reenactors strap on their mount. So to begin my research, I searched a database of every single image that I could find any horse that was saddled to where I could indicate whether they used or did not use breast collars. And out of that research, I found the following. So out of the more than 16,000 images that we searched through, 431 actually had horses that were saddled up and ready to ride. Some images actually had entire companies or even regiments in that field of view. So out of those 431 images, we only found 68 photos that had breast collars. So out of 431, only 68 had breast collars. And out of those 68, only 7 images had enlisted men with breast collars. The rest of those 68 images were officers. Or another way to say it is that a representative 15% of the sample were using breast collars. And out of those who had them, 90% were officers. So basically for mounted officers, they generally had some sort of private purchase breast collar on the saddle, along with all their other private purchase items. However, for the enlisted men, only a handful of troopers would have breast collars. And the most common that we saw was the use of the surcingle over the quarter straps as the breast collar versus some other type of private purchase breast collar. And out of all the images, there was only one that had the classic brass heart black leather breast collar and appeared to be a completely early war image. So when I sat back and thought about it, why were those brass heart breast collars so rare, at least in photographic evidence, when you consider that it was standard piece of tack of all cavalry or dragoons just a few years before the war? In fact, there's a reason that where they came about, there's a reason many writers portray them today, because they actually were a thing. So where did they come from? In fact, breast collars were a staple of American military since the beginning, like I said in the intro. Starting with the founding of the Continental Army all the way up to the issue tack through the 1850s, the breast collar can be found in use with the rank and file. However, it must be noted that the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War used what they could, as there was no formal quartermaster or ordnance depot or manuals specifying what they had to have. I must also make it clear that for the rest of the video, or at least the main point, is that we're talking about the use of breast collars by the standard rank and file of the enlisted men, not the officers. There are plenty of images of officers wearing private purchase breast collars and the like, so we're not going to necessarily talk about that in this video. Mainly because the officer question is kind of out already. It's already been proven, both pre-Civil War and during the Civil War, officers used private purchase breast collars all the time, especially with running martingales. So to sum up the research that Randy Steffen did in volume 1 of his famous Horse Soldier series, he says the following. The first formal contract and mention of breast collars can be seen in the contracts let around 1812. The documentation during that time mentions the use of a leather breastplate with no specifics to its design or construction. Then, in 1833 to 1850, the military formally kept the breast collar. The ordnance manuals on contracts mention a brass band, if you will. Then specifically, we look at the 1841 ordnance manual as it states the following for the breast strap. It is to be 1 inch wide with a buckle at the lower end to form a loop for the girth. At the upper end, a heart covered with a brass plate 2 stays 7/8 inch wide skewed to the upper end of the breastplate, 2 buckles and 4 loops for the same purpose, and 1 breastplate strap passing through the 2 mortises and the connecting strap under the band on the pipe of the holster and the loop on the holster bag. So unlike the 1833 breastplate, the 1841 is black leather. That's one of the major differences. Then in 1847, they changed a little bit, or a lot, by requiring the unit number or the company letter on the brass part of the breast strap. Then, of course, McClellan comes along with the 1859 redesign of the cavalry equipment with the new 59 McClellan saddle and the loss of the breast collar. So with it being so prevalent from the Revolution until just 10 or so years before the American Civil War, why don't we see any leftovers or any number of these brass heart unit stamped breast collars, or at least early on in the Civil War? Well, the answer is multifaceted, like history normally is. First, it's just a numbers game. Before the Civil War, the United States military only had a handful of dragoon or quote cavalry units, and with the explosion of the cavalry regiments entering the service early in the war, the numbers with the new tack set without any breast collars would simply dwarf and outnumber the ones that previously existed, even if they kept them. The second reason is just as easy and simple. It was no longer specified in the uniform or tack complement and was gone from service just long enough to not really have a whole lot of them on hand when the war broke out. So with all of that being said, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that troopers didn't have breast collars. In fact, to the contrary, I'm just saying that brass heart black leather ones that we see portrayed in living histories or reenactments or even in documentaries today was an extremely rare item indeed. And if they did use breast collars, it was either a private purchase one or a non-regulation use of their surcingle over the quarter straps to buckle and use as a breast strap that we see actually not a lot, but enough that we know they did that. Simply put though, the easiest answer is that most troopers didn't have them because they were never issued. So with that being said, there's definitely, like I said, there's 1 or 2 photographs that I've seen out of thousands of photographs that we've covered that have the brass heart black leather one that we see so commonly portrayed in documentaries today. But that's actually not correct. Again, just kind of repeating myself. If they did have breast straps, it would have been private purchase. It probably would have been the surcingle if you were a private, but definitely is not what we generally see. So with that being said, appreciate you guys watching. Please like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and until we see you in the field next time, ride hard. Action. So with it being so prevalent from the Revolution that is so loud.
It's only a tiny broom, it doesn't make that much noise. Keep going, you're fine.
Okay. All right, I gotta start over again.